You're live, going live. So, good. So, we're live. Hi, Judith. Hi, Martin. Make some cable here. Hi, Frank. Hi, everybody. As usual, this is also being streamed to, as usual already right now, streamed to YouTube. So you can watch there in full quality, in HD. Hi there. Hi from Vienna. I hope you're getting more vaccines in Chicago than we are right now, still in Vienna. Yeah, I'm quickly going to leave frame. We start 3 after, and then we get started. I hope you all are healthy. Hi there. You're healthy and safe. We had our first COVID case here in the company, which has been a real heartbreak to have Laszlo in bed. But he'll be back in no time. He's a beast. But still, it's this whole thing is crazy at this time. So I hope you all are doing well and fine and hanging in there until we get out of this mess. So yeah, once again, for everybody who's joining, this is also going to YouTube. And Heidi is kind enough to help in today, and she's totally winging it so we can have a 2-camera thing going to see results and where we start off with. Thanks for that. So 1 more minute to go. I'll quickly go through my notes one more time. May I be excused? Cool. So it's 3 afters. I guess we're just going to get going. Great to have all of you here today. Not shooting and in between breaks and stuff. It's crazy how people are joining in on this big quest that we have at the Light Bridge to talk about light and more about how to use it than about the products, which I think is really important. Let's just get going here. So I'm out of focus. I'm not going to get going until I'm in focus. So let me see what's happening here. Oh my God, this is far too close. So there we go. You see my dirty glasses? Excellent. That's good backlight, if you can see that. Okay, there we go. So soft light is our topic today. Thanks, Judith. Soft light's a big word, right? And I guess some of you thought about, well, what's he going on about soft light, and what's wrong about this word out there about soft light? Isn't that, why do I have to challenge the status quo in that word? It's a great word. We use it all the time. Let's make it harder. Let's make it softer. What is there really to talk about there? I think it's a big one because, when you're lighting and you tell me, Jacob, just do some soft light from the right-hand side. I can do that. And then you say, well, let's do it a little bit harder. And then it's like, well, we wanted a really soft light, didn't we? What do we want to do now? No, we just want a little bit harder. And exactly at that point, all our just buy a soft source, do this, goes down the road. Why? Because suddenly you're not about a word, you're wanting to go somewhere. You have something precise in mind that you want to get to. And then it's not about the word soft anymore. It's about, give me this just a little bit harder. I want the shadow a little bit more detailed. And all of a sudden, it's not enough anymore for me to say, I set up a soft light. All of a sudden, I have to jump into your world, right? Into your bubble, the way you see things. And I'm out of mind what is a soft light for me. And that's, I think, is the most exciting part about the whole process. Because what it's all about is to get into that mode that you're in as a gaffer, especially, to see what is soft light for you, or where do you want to go with this? And from that point on, I have to learn the nuances. I have to understand how I can take a soft light and just make it an inch harder, make it an inch softer. And for me, that's where the word soft light gets difficult, because it's not just soft light, right? It's 2 things that give us the feeling of being a soft light. It's the amount of diffusion, plus it's the size of the light source or the bounce that we're doing. But we'll get into that into a moment. So for me, it's all about learning, right? It's about learning where you want to go. And learning's a big thing. It's like, why do I have to learn something new now? You know, I'm good at what I do. Why do I have to even get into this? Why go to the hassle? Because it takes energy, right, to learn something new. But let me just tell you something. You know, I thought a long time about this, but I think I'm going to do it. I want to tell you about a big mistake I made. And I want to tell you how that story came about. So about 20 years ago, you know, I was a hotshot gaffer here in Austria. I was the youngest gaffer that started out. I did more and more big movies. At some point, I was shooting 200 days per year, all the international productions that were coming in. I even had to get 2 crews to run at the same time, just because we had so many jobs coming in. So things were going really great. And I was, you know, my spirit was high. I was able, you know, we were able to afford a house, you know, to get a mortgage on that. So life was just really pushing on. And I was in a part of my life where I say, hey, there's nothing else to learn. You know, I'm just a really great gaffer. And what to do? I'm shooting with this awesome DP, Christian Berger, and we're working with his Reflectors idea. I'm doing other big commercials at the same time. So things are going really great. And then this Angelina Jolie movie came along, which was a big one because, you know, I was used to shooting movies here in Austria, around Austria, but always, you know, European productions. So I thought, well, I know how to do this. I handled budget as this size, broken down into longer TV shows or whatever. And when we started to go down to Malta, and as we started the whole process of rigging and prepping the whole thing, I really noticed that I was a big step away from where I just came from our little European Vienna city right here in the center. That was a huge international big world out there. It felt like being in a boxing ring every day and just being punched, just in having discussions, because everything was culturally so different to what I was used to, because, you know, those big movies are made to make money. And so everything is set up at a completely different level of talking about and just spending, you know, state money to do stuff. So I got there, you know, I just remember 1 week into the prep time, I had the feeling for the first time I was able to get my way with the producer, where I think what was necessary to do. I was just being pushed down. So I was learning and getting there. And the crazy thing was, as much as there was, you know, I was just trying to, you know, find my position in this whole thing. As soon as we got to set, it was in the center of a hurricane. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was at my best. I was lighting. I could do perfectly what I needed to do. But what was new for me was the whole cultural difference in how to talk about film and how to prep movies in that kind of a big way and what stuff to look out for. So that was a big thing. And when the movie was over, I really had for the first time the feeling I really accomplished something in my life. I did my first big Hollywood movie. And at the same time, I had the feeling what we were doing with Christian's idea of the Reflectors. For the first time, it was like, wow, it's not just, you know, Christian artsy movies, we're doing this, even, you know, if they're getting big acclaim and stuff, we're in the big commercial world and actually we can use these reflectors. And, you know, we were working with local manufacturers to get them done, but it wasn't there where I had the feeling where it could go to really make it into a product. So, you know, this thing was to say, let's start the light bridge. Let's get this going. And the whole manufacturing, getting everybody to help in, you know, asking everybody on the crew who wants to help out to get this company going was a big thing. So, you know, it was great. And at the same time, I was feeling, how do we now know how to build these reflectors? Let's say we already know how do we sell it? I had no idea. So I was looking for a partner to sell. And luckily, Christian knew somebody who, since a long time, who said, look, you know, I'm a big manufacturer myself, but, you know, I can help out. I can do the sales for you because I sell a lot of products. And for me, it was just great. I don't have to learn anything about selling. I can concentrate on lighting. I can concentrate on manufacturing, and off I go. So, of course, didn't take too long till I got this earth-shattering email I will never forget in my life saying, can we turn up the volume a little bit more? Am I too quiet? I'm sorry. I can do the microphone as an easy one. Oh, wait a minute. I can do this. Give me a second. Let's do it like this. So I hope the volume's better now. So getting back to my part where I got this email saying, you know, Jacob, it's been a pleasure, but we decided to do our own version of your reflectors. And, you know, it's best to go back to just being a gaffer. It's not for you, the manufacturing world. Let's not do that. That was the biggest hit I've ever taken in my life, getting that email, because we were so set up and we saw that the quality was right. We really had the feeling of passion to go out there. And to get something like that is just shattering. But if you look at it, what was my mistake there? It's not about somebody else copying me. It's not about doing that. It's about what did I do wrong? What I did was I leaned back and said, oh, I don't have to learn something. Somebody else can take care of that. So what I did there was, and you know what even is the bigger mistake than just saying, oh, I made a mistake, is not learning from it. So the hell I did that. I said, okay, if this is what's going to happen, I'm going to learn how to sell. I'm going to take this company. I'm going to fly to Los Angeles for the first time in my life, meeting people I don't know, go in there, shake hands, and start learning the business. And you see, 5 years later, I must say, I think we did something right, because now somehow this guy who's been copying us is saying we're copying him. So I guess we really did something right along the way. And what I'm most proud about is what I learned from it, how I grew as a human being, was seeing I have to constantly learn. I have to constantly be in a position where I continue to do things, where I continue to push the envelope. And you see it in the products. What we do here every day at the Lightbridge is, how can we make this better? How can we improve? What do you guys need? Trying to get feedback out of it. And even if I'm tired at the end of the day and it's really a new job for me to learn, I'm pushing. I'm pushing and pushing. And everybody else here is pushing too. And we really thrive on that. And I'm sure you know this feeling too, when you accomplish something and you had to go those 10 miles more than actually you had a feeling you could ever do in your life. That's really where you feel, okay, this is me. I'm really getting somewhere in my life. And I feel the same way is about lighting when working with DPs too. When you work with DPs, you just say, give me a soft light from the side. I'm fine. When's lunch break? Let's go home. Nothing special comes out of that. Some jobs, it might have to be that way. But in a general mode, to find something, even the most boring job out there, to say, what can I do to become better today? What can I do to learn today? And I think that's the most important and striving thing that makes everybody better and set, that makes the product better, and it just makes you better DPs and gaffers and everything out there. Because at the end of the day, you're being judged by the quality you produce. Nobody cared about lunch break. Nobody, as important as eating is. But at the same time, it's all about what you represent yourself with, what you are. And that's what it is. And I think that's what we have to push for. So, you know, when COVID hit us, it was really, we were starting to sell, everything was going, was, okay, what do we do now? And Judith actually pointed out to say, let's try, why don't you go and Insta Live? Seems people have time to spend at home to look at stuff, and let's do this. So we did that. And thanks, Judith, for pointing this one out. And I took everything I learned from, you know, doing presentations and stuff, and we put it in here. And what I learned is the joy to what you're learning, you know, to put that out there, to share it with you. And you know how amazing it is to see the results that you post back to us on Instagram with all the gear you got from us. That's where I'm learning the most right now. It's seeing, oh, this is the way you use it. Oh, this is what you're doing with it. And that's just incredible to see all of you guys out there shooting, rolling. I mean, everybody's trying to learn a living out there. It's not just let's get something new because it's fun. You get to take this gear to set. You got to shoot. You got to get paid. At the end of the day, you want to get a handshake to say you're booked again for the next job. I mean, there's a lot of stake out there. So the gear out there that we're using, right? It has to live up to that. It's not like saying, buy something cheap, I don't care. You know, it's like with food. Eat cheap food all your life. At some point, you're going to get the bill, you know? You got to, you know, take care of yourself. And we got to take care of the lighting that we do too in that kind of a way. So for me, there's, as I'm sure you've noticed, a big relationship between lighting and food. So anyway, going from there, I think, you know, that's the way we do it. And I think that's the way we have to do it. And yes, I love learning everything I can about a company right now. And I love continue to take it with ease, what I know from lighting, and continue to learn of that too. So this new relationship, not just going from DP to DP, but being with all of you in contact via the social media forum is insane. We haven't had this anywhere like this anymore. So I'll just head into, there's some questions here. What is the best way light while lighting outdoor at night? Well, that's a big one. It depends where you're shooting. If you want to do, I'm starting a movie next week. So we had tech recce's right now, a location scouting, say in English, where we say, why don't we do moonlight? Let's just put up some lantern posts. Let's try to reuse that. And sometimes it's really important, you know, just to say, as you say, what emotion do you want to get for it? How should it feel? You know, what's right for the story in this one? So in some cases, it's just best to augment the natural light coming from street lights. Sometimes it's better to turn everything off, or you're shooting in places where there is nothing. And then the question arises, what's night light, right? What does that remind us of? And that's a big thing about learning too, you know. We learn from what we see, and then we accept it, which can be a really tricky thing for human beings, because we can accept things that aren't that great out there. And it takes us it's better than to relearn than to do something new. So it's the same thing with lighting too. We're so used to blue moonlight, for example. We just taken it for granted. And when you see something else, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's this? It still feels like light, right? Sometimes that's the best way to go. So I really think it's not so much a technical approach to night lighting. It's really about what do you want to do. And then when you want to get into that, like I got offered a movie to shoot it's the full movies at night in a forest. So that's a tricky one. So that's where the craft comes into, to understand what does backlight do, how can you do front light in the really back part of things. So that's where it starts to get into the craft of stuff. But first of all, that's the way you have a gaffer, right? And if you're trying to be a gaffer, see, you know, what guys are around you and what he can do to test. And I think that's a big one too, because testing in the beginning years when I was starting out, I always wanted to test. And I was like, don't you know your job? Why do you have to test? I was like, well, what do we want to do for this movie? Can we do anything new? No, just stick with it. Don't even try to learn something. And the bigger movies I did, the more common it was, because there it was clear that we had to push the boundaries. We had to be better than the rest. And all of a sudden, testing wasn't a thing. And testing doesn't mean that you don't know. Testing means you're trying to find out what is right between you and what you're trying to achieve. So it's always something that we have to do all the time anyways. And I think it's a great way to learn too. Like we just did a lighting test the other day, and I never really used a lot of black silks. And this whole movie should be really, really dark. And it was all going back to the idea of saying, how doesn't it look lit? And I remembered in the American Cinematographer, there was an article about an alien movie, and they were doing like miniature works, and was like, how do you create light in space? You know, it's pitch black and there's one light source. How does it feel really nice? And I think they were really testing for a long time. At some point, I think it was per accident, somebody was walking by with a huge piece of black wrap that the light was bouncing in, and all of a sudden, you know, it looks perfect. So I went back to that. We went back to testing with black silks. And even for me, you know, you can't be embarrassed about it. It's just about, let's try this. Let's see what it does for us, if it's right for the movie. And it doesn't mean you have to go out there and tell the producer, I don't know what I'm doing, I need to test. It's about, you know, finding this fine line of saying, well, this could be great for the movie. Let's have a look at this. Let's invest into seeing if this works great for the movie. And also, you know, it's about showing it to the DP an idea. I don't want to be on set, the DP trusting me and saying, oh, Jacob knows what he's doing. No, we both have to find a common language, right? There we go back to soft light too. We'll get down to the question of what's the difference between CLS, the Centimeter Reflector mirrors, with diffusion to a normal mirror. We'll definitely get into that. Yeah, so that's that. I'm just trying to see, catching up on the comments. You know, this question is interesting because we're talking about learning, if I prefer fieldwork to academic studies. I always felt that I only want to learn if I've got a goal in front of me. That's the way my brain works. I want to know where I want to go. I want to, you know, get this kind of light, or I want to, you know, get my company there or whatever. And then I learn from there. Just to say, I first want to learn, then decide what I want to do. I'm not the guy to do that. So I think it's really important that we all feel comfortable the way we learn and how we learn, because we all are good at some stuff and not good at other stuff. It takes us longer to comprehend it. And I think it's really important to go with the flow with that. That's just the way it is. I'm not fast with numbers. I don't care. I got a calculator, sit down, say, guys, 2 minutes, let me calculate this, and we move on. On other stuff, like with words, I'm much faster. I don't even have to think about it. I just can talk for you for hours. So everybody's different in that kind of way. And I think we really have to embrace that and see where our weaknesses are and how we actually can work around it to get people, like I have Andreas in the company who's fantastic with numbers, to take care of that. And that's all fine. It doesn't matter, because we can't be superhumans, and we don't have to be. We just really want to be good at one thing, right? And that's where we have to get to. We need, you know, we need a village to get it done in any case. So, but that's the fun thing, because that gives us a lot of beer and parties at the end of the day to go from there. So anyway, that's... Yeah. I think a really nice movie is called The Notebook, and it's with Christian Berger, and we shot in Hungary. Really small movie, not one of the big ones, but I think the guys really nailed it there. I also believe calculators are great things. Okay, I don't want to get into small talk. Yeah, so just to put that back again, I just want to sum it all up. So the thing is really to be proud of the mistakes we made. They are our mistakes, right? And we're the people that learn from them. And we have to be proud of this process of failing, of trying again and going again, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's going to make us stronger. To do the things that we love, right? Because that's what it gets down to the end of the day. We got to do what we got to do. So because it's been such a long learning curve with the reflectors when we started out, I wanted to walk you through the process of which sizes we have now, why we think these sizes were interesting for us. It's changing now because it's not only our small little bubble that we're here in Vienna, that we're working on for 15 years. Now it's all of you guys out there and the feedback that you bring back to us that's being put into the products too. So that's, anyway, as I can't mention often enough, fantastic. So thanks everybody for posting and for tagging and for letting us learn alongside what you're doing out there right now, which is great. So sizes, right? We have 5 different types of sizes. They start out, let me just roll this over here. Du könntest vielleicht umschalten zwischendurch. Yeah, see, there's a second camera. Bam! And if I pull this out correctly, there we go. It even comes into the big frame. Okay, so we got different sizes here. So we start out with the really small ones. So we start out with the really small ones. That's 7 by 7. The importance of lighting and film, I gotta stop what I'm doing. It's emotions. It's like when you go to a restaurant and you eat and you're not a cook, you can say, oh, it tasted really fantastic. I don't have to understand what's great about it. I just have to feel good when I go out. I want to be full of energy. I don't want to be tired. I want to have the feeling it just was a fantastic meal, right? And just, you don't even have to analyze it too much. So with lighting, it's even more intense. You watch a movie and you're emotional. You don't understand why. I mean, most people, not except us, of course, working in industry, think, wow, that movie, I cried, I laughed, I had such a great time. I can't leave this show. I'm watching for hours and hours and hours. But why is this? And I think the lighting part about all of this is about this small little part about it catches you in the gut. It's something that you can't tag. Even if I get into a movie, I don't even look at the lighting anymore because it just drags you in to the scene, into the emotion. So I think lighting is all about creating atmosphere to create emotions, because as humans, we're tagged this way. We remember stuff, right? For actors, there's this emotional remembering. I guess that's not great English, but it's basically if they want to cry, they remember something in their own life that made them feel really sad and they bring it back out again. It's the same for all of us with emotions. So when we're in a dark room and we just have this really one shaft of light coming in, it reminds us of something. And this emotion brings something out in us. Dark spaces, we don't see them, so we're scared about it. Everything really bright lit, we feel halfway comfortable. If it's overlit, something may be, again, different. So it's always about going back between our physical existence in light and how we remember that and how we can transport that into a square box so everybody else out there can feel something maybe similar to what we have when what we were trying to achieve. There's not always 100%, this will do this, never. Everybody will tell you something different. If you say, look at a painting, what do you feel? Everybody's going to say something different. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that we create emotion. The rest will take care of itself. It's downhill at that point when we can trigger that. So when it comes to emotions, let's talk about sizes of reflectors. 7 by 7. The reason we did this, and I don't want to drop it, so there we go. The reason we did such a small one is really for catching eye light. It's great to hide on tables. It's great for tabletop work. It's great for really precise little stuff if you want to get something there. Yes, we will get to the size. I'll go through sizes and then we'll go to diffusions and then we'll have a look at it with a laser to really have a look at what ray of light would do and how that affects it. Okay, so 7 by 7 reflector. Really great for eye lights, really great for tabletop works. We hide it often on tables, for example, for eye lights. And in the last few movies, I've actually started hiding them in lampshades, like the one back there, just to get a little bit extra punch. You won't see it. and it does what it should for that little way. From there on up, we go to a 15 by 15 centimeter reflector. This is this size here. So this one's already really special because it allows you to have a light that's, you already created, or there is an available light and you want to add a little speck of light. Not too much. So you just want to have this little bit of light that pushes in somewhere, because the more light you catch with the reflector, the brighter it's going to be, right? That makes sense. So by having a size like this, it's really great for getting something out in the face, for adding a little bit something on your clothes, and we use it a lot, just for background stuff, for say, for example, for some sunlight in the back, some specular stuff, works really great there too. So that's where the 15 comes in place. The 25 is an interesting one, because that didn't exist actually for a long time. It was like we had the big ones, the 50s, then we had the smaller ones, and these kind of came in place to fill in the gap, because it's really interesting. We're always lighting physical spaces, and all physical spaces, as humans, are a certain size. So every door is a certain size, the ceiling height is a certain size. So somehow some sizes just fit magical into a room. And I'm sure Martine from Matthews could talk for an hour about that. What sizes of butterflies fitting great into spaces, walk them through doors. They don't walk through doors anymore. So all of a sudden this plays in. So the 25 actually came right in handy between the smaller one and the bigger one. So sometimes you say, I just want a little bit more, I want a little less. That's exactly where it's going to fit in there. So this is really great actually for faces, because it already has a certain size, so it doesn't feel too specular, because shadows of noses and stuff you got to take care of. So that's great there. Also great if you just need a little bit more punch in the background. So the 25 is, I feel, an in-between size that fits in. If the big one's too big, the small one's too small. Okay, so there we go, 50. So this is obviously the workhorse here. Why? It's bigger than, as stupid as it sounds, it's bigger than my face. So what does that mean? It's going to wrap around a little bit more. And we'll get into that when we talk about diffusion and sizes more. But in all, it just is big enough to really light a face. It gives you enough punch actually to already start lighting in through windows, which is a great thing to do too, because you've got available light, daylight come in, and you just want to add some punch. 25 is never going to be a big enough surface to actually push the light into that. So the 50 actually is really helping on that way. Lighting in from outside, giving you some window light, at the same time giving you already a nice big soft surface if you want that for the faces. So there's the 50. As of there, you see in the back is the big one. That's the 100 by 100 centimeter reflector. This is already a really special one. This is a workhorse if you're lighting in through windows. That's the size where you say, well, I need a definitely big size to light in size. Everything bigger than that is already going to be a massive setup from that side on, which is great for all the feature film work where you get that a lot. Well, we need a bigger size. What's the biggest one you got? What? You only got 4x4. Obviously, that's on the stage where you say you got enough guys actually and girls to handle all the stuff. But it's great also for wraparound. I use them actually a lot in rooms too, because they're nice little stands with rows, so it's great to move them around, and it gives you a big enough surface. And remember, the way they're engineered, those surfaces, they're not going to give you any spill light, so you actually can pull off doing something big. I'm sorry if YouTube stopped working. It's still working here with us. Hi, Brandon. I'm sorry. Yeah, it says it's still running here. Maybe it's recording it, and then when we post it, it's going to be back again. Sorry about that. I wouldn't see what's not working at the moment. Okay. So there we go. All the sizes from the 7x7, doing some small, really nice work, up to the portrait stuff and lighting through windows with the 50x50, and then going all the way up to the meter by meter to lighting through windows. Also used for interior work, which is great, and you can use them for faces as well, obviously. The bigger, the better at some point. So let's get into diffusions. When we talk about, next time, please try to give a practical example of lighting. Yes, sir. I will next time not talk as much and go back into doing something really practical. I'll do that. Sometimes you need to talk, man. Sorry about that. When we go into diffusions to talk about something practical, we have a range of 5 different ones. What does that mean? We have the range between a mirror replacement, diffusion 0. The reason I never thought we would do something like that, that's something that came back to us of saying, look, guys, real mirrors break. they're heavy to transport. It's glass, so there's this whole issues involved with that, and people want to move out of that, which I totally get. So that's the reason, because we are actually, I'm proud of that, we're really good enough in the manufacturing process to really get it down to that level where it actually is like a real mirror. It's not going to be as 100% perfect as a real mirror. I want to say that real clear too, because there is nothing else you can do than what happens in the glass process. So whatever we do with our process, with the gluing and the manufacturing of it, is almost as perfect. So we tested with an IKEA mirror next to each other, and you can look it up on the old videos too, where there are more practical approaches to this. And you can see it's like a real mirror. It actually gives you more output too, because the light doesn't have to go through glass anymore to come back out again. So it's a great tool. It's going to scratch on you. Glass doesn't scratch on you. So there is always that up and down side of it. But I think in terms of the family of working, I wanted diffusion 1. No, I need it harder. Okay, you can go to diffusion 0. That's actually the reason on the other end of the scope, we did a diffusion 4, the super wide, which is really close to your Muslim, for example. The reason we did it for the same reason is you're in the family. You're going to go to 3 to 4. You want to go back to 3. You don't want to change grip. You want to be fast, easy, and precise, and just swapping out stuff to see what you need. At the same time, diffusion 4 is rainproof, so not with the rags out, they don't get wet on you, and it's windproof, so not with all the pulley boards out there that they're just going to break with you on that. I remember being a electrician still, and we were doing a commercial, and it was a big one from, I don't know where the guys were from, and a big setup, and I was standing there outside needing to hold a pulley board to take out some reflection from a glass that was coming from an opposite window and hold it off. And the wind was so strong, I swear I was holding the pulley board like this. All of a sudden the whole pulley board blew off, and it was a high-speed shot, and you could see all the pulley board stuff going through frame like that. So that was the end of the pulley board that way. And now we're at diffusion 4, and that will happen to you if you want to do it like that. It's more heavier, of course, than a pulley board. So in some circumstances, it's a great thing to do. Environmentally, pulley boards, I'm trying not to use them on this feature film anymore. Let's see how we do. Yeah, so when we go, the question came up with the opal and opal frost, right? That's a completely different world, because we're talking about lighting through objects and what's happening when you're lighting through object, and how the light disperses from there, and how it starts to refract it, how it starts to diffuse it. So that's on the other end of the spectrum of what we're doing with reflecting the light, but actually the process is quite similar. So when you go to diffusion 1, I'll show this right here, you can see my face still a little bit. Yeah, you can on YouTube too. There we go. So there we go. I'll do it for YouTube too. Let me see. Exactly. So my face is still a little bit there, but it feels like it's behind an opal frost a little bit, if you may say. So this feeling of saying the light source is further away, my face is further away because it's not here. It's actually, over here. And at the same time, it still gives you this little beautiful glow of diffusion in the front of it. So this actually starts to break up the light a little bit. What it does is, and that's the insane thing about it, is this is actually manufactured, it's actually engineered surface. So every ray that goes in, comes out, is precisely what it should do. And we'll have a look at this with the laser that's already on behind me in a second. Good. So this is diffusion number 1. It's going to be really great for hot spots, for sunny sources, for redirecting light. Diffusion 0 is also going to be great for the same reasons of that. But if you need this little bit of diffused light, like you'd say, I want an 8th Hampshire, I want an opal frost, a really thin one. This may be just for your mind if this helps close to it. It's going to be entirely different in a way because you're reflecting the light. So it means you're going to have less fall off. You're not going to have the spill light issues because this is an engineered surface, and not with the opal. It's going to open up like a frame, right? You've got to put flags left and right side of it, so this is not going to happen. Diffusion 1, I'm actually showing you 2. See, that's where it goes. Diffusion 1, let me do this again. So there we go. See, I'm concentrating and talking, so that's close to my face, right? So this is diffusion 1. Feels almost close to a real mirror. And here we go, diffusion 2. There we go. Oops, there's my face. And it's already more diffused. So you see what's happening here, right? It's getting a little bit softer, and it's getting more softer. At the same end of the things, you see in the back, it's got color codings. So why is that? The reason is it's easier on the radios that we found out, because to call out numbers on the radios, we're doing that all the time. Bring me a 4K, bring me that. Now you're adding in the mix with reflectors. Bring me a 25-1. Okay, so sometimes it's just like, wait a minute, let's break this down and make this simpler, because sometimes the connections aren't as good. It's much easier to say, bring me a 25 blue. All of a sudden, we don't use the color codes as much in the lighting industry, so it really points out, oh, he needs a Cine reflector. Guys, get him a Cine reflector out of the truck. So this is what's really helping. So diffusion number 1, black, diffusion number 2, blue. And these tags you see on the back here, they come in the sleeves. You'll also have the color codings on here, so it's really a system that's meant and streamlined for speed. There we go. From there we go to diffusion number 3. There we go. See, it's even more diffused. So here we're already going very far into the diffusion world, but it's still, you start to kind of feel my face a little bit, right? Which is really interesting. So that means is you still have the feeling the light source is not where the reflectors, it's further away. So even if actors are walking, it's not about so much technically about the fall off, it just gives you a different feel for it. And I think that's the most important thing we need to look out for, because the light meter is not going to tell us if the light feels right. It's not going to tell us if it fits the scene. It's going to help us technically if the exposure is there, but it ends there. And actually the fun starts there. So from that point on is when you go to flavors and you find, for example, like Eddie says, he loves the 2. And everybody, for a movie, it may be different. For me, a lot of times it's the 3s from that kind of way. It goes from there. And Nestor Mendoz, if you haven't seen that guy's work, go into it. We learn so much from him. Such beautiful work in that kind of a way. So yeah, it's all about perceiving and looking at light and finding what you want to do. And these reflectors, it's so basic, right? You actually, it's not just a button you push, it gives you this. This actually opens up multiple options for you. Okay, diffusion 3. Diffusion 4, then we get to some practical work, and I stop talking, is diffusion 4 super white. This is what I said is already really close to our bounce boards that we know. If you start, and that's an interesting thing about engineered surfaces, it's subsurface scattering. So it's an aluminum layer, and it's got a top layer that feels almost like paper, but it's much more durable and much more output. It's only got 2% light loss, which is insane. In there, it's subsurface scattering. It's like snow. Light penetrates the first layer, reflects, comes back out again. Some of it gets reflected off the first layer. So it's giving you this more voluminous light. And I feel that when you do a double reflection into diffusion 4, it's going to feel different than any of the stuff we've seen before. Somehow it kind of lights up magically. Again, there we go into what you're looking for, what you like, what you feel is great for yourself. So it's just about offering the varieties, which is the best thing for me as a gaffer, obviously, to say, look, we can do anything we want from there to give you all your options. Okay, so we got that covered. So we got one thing we haven't covered. Yes, the original 4 was not able to keep up in quality and consistency, which is a huge thing for us. If you purchase a diffusion number 1, you're going to get the same thing far down the road. And if we have the feeling we cannot keep up this consistency, we got to stop it. We're going to find something that does it, because nothing's going to be worse, and Martin knows exactly what I'm talking about. You have something you want to swap, suddenly you get something different, it's changing, like gels, right? You use it, okay, I got my perfect color, and then it's going to fade out, and suddenly the color doesn't feel right anymore. And we don't look out for that because we're worried about other stuff, and we don't want to worry about this stuff with lighting. It has to be consistent, it's got to be the same, it's going to give us the results day after day after day on the set. So it goes from there. So it's one thing that I really want to quickly talk about before we go into the laser, is size, right? Because I'm sure you've experienced saying, let's bring in the frame a little bit closer, let's bring it in closer. This feeling of this closer, what does it do? It gives you the feeling of a more soft light. Why? Because it's the same diffusion and it's the same size. So why does it give you the feeling that it's softer? The reason it's giving you softer is because of the wraparound, which means physically, the light source, like I was saying about the 50 here, is not only coming in from this direction, it's coming in a little bit from behind, and it's coming you a little bit in from the front. So it's wrapping into the shadow, lighting up the shadows, and that's the reason it's giving you this more softer feel, which is a crazy thing. And we'll have a look at this in a second, because I feel that this is something on the day-to-day process with the tools we had up until now, it's never been such big of a concern. And with the reflectors, you can get so much more precise results if you take care of that. Yeah, so that's what's important about size, to talk about that. So if somebody says, just give me a soft light, just always think about two things. How dense is the diffusion? How big is the size? Because just think, I want a big source, 12 by 12 butterfly. Let's put it on. You bring it in, and suddenly it's a hard shadow. Well, why is that? It's really far away. But bring in a small 6 by 6 really close, it's going to feel much softer than a 12 by 12. Yeah, and that's the reason, because the 12 by 12 is so much further away than the 6 by 6 that's closer. So that's something also to look out for the reflectors. When you say, oh, I want it softer, I want it harder, it does depend on the size too. So diffusion 3, 7 by 7 is always going to give you a hard light, right? Bring in a 50 by 50 really close diffusion 3, it's going to give you the soft feel of it. So that's something to play with, the distance of it. And at that point, I also want to point out theoretically, again, that ambience matters. You know that feeling? You have this small, I don't know, back in when I was doing this kind of stuff, like having a small HMI, 400 watts, it looks great, looks like sun. Why? We are shooting in the shadow, there's enough daylight coming in, giving you ambience, and the punch of the small lights is enough. Then the sun goes down on us. What happens? Oh my God, it looks horrible, because you're losing the fill light, and all of a sudden the small light source is not giving you the feeling of penetration like sun would do. So that's something to also look out for the reflectors, depending on which light sources you're using. So it's going to feel soft and beautiful, maybe because there's enough ambience light mixing into this. So that's something to look out for at the same time. So actually something we could look at in the next Insta live session. Okay, let's go look at some lasers to get down to business. I'll turn off the lights, and let's see that it hopefully holds up technically. So lights are off. And what we have here. So mainly made waste, right? So here what you have is a laser beam. That's all. It's a simple, clear laser beam that's traveling around in this room. We've got a lampshade that's now lighting up the room a little bit because the laser's going in. That's about it. So I'm going to push the laser here. I'm now going to take a diffusion, let's say, a 1. Nuller? Irgendwo? An Runden, ja. Super. Okay. Ja, irgendein Wurscht an Nuller. So, we're now going to look, he's helping out again. So I'm pushing out the laser. And, and now I'm putting in, let's see where this goes, a diffusion 0. So basically, what's the difference that we have here right now? At the one point, at one point, we have a direct laser. This is like a real spot, right? And I'm going into diffusion 0. It's giving you the same spot, but it's also giving you a streak of light. This is something, because we're really geeking out here, you will never see when using an actual light source. This is only because we're doing like microns of a ray of light, like a laser, that's giving us this. The reason is this is a manufacturing process. The aluminum has to get rolled out. And this is actually what you're seeing, the way the aluminum gets rolled out before it gets surface treated and coated. So this is something you will never see in real daylight, or using it with any light source, because you've got so many multiple rays going into that one reflector, even with the diffusion 0, it won't look any different. So don't get caught up by that. So from there, we go to diffusion 1 black. That was diffusion 0 gray. And what we can see here immediately is, you see how we get that streak again from the rolling process, but at the same time, we're getting already a lot of scattering around it. So this is already diffusion 1, giving us a small hint of diffused light on the side. And everything doesn't matter which size we would go into, because the laser beam is so small, we do not produce so small reflectors. So there we go. This is diffusion number 1. Then we go to diffusion number 2. And here you see what's happening here. This is already giving you a whole lot of diffused light. And at the same thing you see with the rolling of the manufacturing of it, if I turn it, you're still going to see the sliver of light. Like it's already a little bit on a length shade, and if I turn it again, it's going to be horizontally and vertically. See this? You will never or really hardly see this when using a real light source. But in terms of manufacturing process, we're really looking at the nuts and bolts of how these reflectors are being produced. So there we go. This is a diffusion 2, already giving you a nice wide spread of this. And again, just to keep it in mind, we're working off one laser beam. So just one beam of light is spreading in this kind of way, which is kind of insane. So this is diffusion 2. Then we move up to diffusion 3, and I'll just take 4 at the same time. There we go. Okay, look at this. This is diffusion 3. This is already a really wide spread you're getting from this. And again, spill-light-free light source, so not like putting up a frame. This is really just starting to flood up the room for you, which is cool, and it gives you full control. So I still can pan this around and do whatever I need to do. Okay, so this was diffusion 3. And then we go to diffusion number 4. And you see how the spread in the room is? That's already very intense, because that's already... Ich glaube, kannst du mal umschalten? That's already too dark for the YouTube. Give it zurück, danke. Okay, so that's already giving you the full room of spread, right? At the same time, even if you're using the most diffused surface, you see how the shadows are super hard. I'm actually getting a really cool shadow to show off a Mathellini here. So on the side, this was not intentional. Please look at the lampshade back there. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. I'm sure Martine's happy about that one. So there we go. Okay, so here we're flooding the full room. But there's one thing that I really want to point out. You see how hard the shadow is? I'm using diffusion 4. It has almost 180 degrees spread, super diffused, hard shadow. Why? I have a small source, right? That's the reason. So the source is so small, no matter what diffusion I use, it's going to give you a really super hard shadow. Okay, so let's say we go to a bigger surface and say, well, wait a minute. Let's light into a 1 by 1 meter, 100 by 100 centimeter, diffusion 3, and have a look at the shadow. And I'm sure people are screaming. Jetzt kannst du umschalten. So this shadow, you see what's happening, is like super hard. We're going into a 100 by 100 centimeter reflector, and it's still a really hard, precise shadow. Same thing again. Single laser beam. It's going into the 100 by 100, and it's creating this really hard shadow. And this won't change no matter what size we use. Even if we say, well, wait a minute, Jacob, let's go to diffusion number 1 and do this. And I put this into the beam. It's going to be as hard, but I'm not going to have as much spread. Oopsie, there we go. So diffusion 1, diffusion 3. See the difference? Still a hard shadow, but much more diffusion, much more spread. So that really proves the point. We need surface if we want to create a feeling of a soft light source. Really important. But let's do this. So for example, if we say now, let's quickly have a look what people are writing. Laser with 95. I tell you, those lasers are coming. They're coming. Okay, get the effect. Okay, I did the same experiment with my CLS. It really helps, doesn't it, in the beginning? Or if I use diffusion 1 mirror, will I get the effect of light by reflecting one source from centimeters? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Will I get the effect of light by reflecting one source several mirrors? Yeah, that's the whole thing. If you stick to that, actually a really good point. I'll show you that. So the fall off does not influence the soft light. It just doesn't. Oh, it's way too dark for YouTube. Okay, I'm going back to where I started. So, okay, we got this hard light here. So let's do, for example, so let's go, for example, and say let's double reflect it. So what I'll do is I'll take a diffusion 0 to really do this. Boom. And I'm going to do a double reflection. So what I'm doing is I'm panning out the laser into the opposite direction of the 100. And now I'm lighting into the 100 reflector. And now I'm doing the same thing again. So you see, it's a little bit of spread, something we get from the diffusion 3, but still a super hard shadow. So even if I'm doubling the distance, see, I even can do it like this. I move in the laser into shot, so you see this too. Now I'm taking the beam, I'm putting it back, and then I'm lighting it. Same hard shadow. Yes, the fall off will be much bigger. Actors and actresses moving in the frame, they won't blow out, it won't feel as sourcey, but it will not give you a softer light. The softer light will only come by diffusion. We already did as much as we could, let's say with a diffusion 3 for right now. But the only thing we can do now is increase the size of the surface. So if we go from diffusion 0, we go to diffusion number 1. Ooh, see this? It's already starting to get softer on us. I hope the cameras can capture this perfectly, what I'm seeing. So why all of a sudden do we get a soft lampshade? The reason is diffusion 1, as we've seen, already gives you a certain amount of spread. So I am filling up the 100 by 100 centimeter reflector more. So by doing this, it's going to give us a more diffused light because we're getting more light into the 100 by 100 centimeter reflector. We're filling out more the surface. It's becoming a bigger surface, hence giving us a little bit more wraparound, giving us a softer light. We actually can go further than that. We can go to diffusion number 2. See how soft this light source gets? I mean, this is already looking really nice with the eye because we're filling now totally the 100 by 100. On YouTube, you can see it. So as you can see here, I'm now going to diffusion back number 1. And you can see it on YouTube. So basically, I'm lighting into the 100 by 100 and giving you the shadow. Now I'm going to diffusion 2. I'm really filling up the 100 by 100 now. And I'm getting a really nice shadow for that reason. So that's the cool thing about the Cine reflectors too. Only 3% light loss, which means you actually can pull this stuff up with double reflection in this kind of way. Yeah, from diffusion 2, you could go to diffusion 3, but it has proven that if I start to do multiple reflections, I usually use diffusion 0, so it's even softer now. Boom, really soft, beautiful spread. I'm already using a lot of light around the reflector to get you this, but it's giving even a softer light. For multiple reflections, always start light source, number 1. Then you go to a next harder source. So never use diffusion 4, as I'm just doing right now, into diffusion 3. Why does this not work? Because the light's going all over the place. So go to your light source, go to your hardest Cine reflector you have, diffusion 0, diffusion 1, and then go into your next reflector, going as soft as you need to go. So from diffusion 0 to from diffusion 0 you start out with, from 1 to 4 basically. So that's the trick basically to pull it off. So just to show you in daylight, again, not daylight, in more light. Oh my God, this is bright, boom. What I did, yeah? So basically we had the laser here. Now we took the 100 by 100, I lit into the laser, I took the laser beam, redirected it into the second reflector and then onto the set. So just to point this out again, this is your light source. Then choose your hardest reflector you want to use. Usually I go for diffusion 1. Why? It gives you the minimum amount of spill light, nothing. It will only punch your light back up again. So you don't have to worry about, like I showed in previous sessions, lighting down into a reflector, lighting back up again. So this really helps keep away the hassle of working with the reflector. Diffusion 1, then light up, and then you go into the next size of diffusion. And then from there you can go, even this nice 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, it's always going to be adding up diffusions from that way. Yeah, so basically, this was the big thing that I wanted to show you today, how size actually, at some point, does affect the softness that we need to go into. Okay. So let me just go down. You can feel the shadows of each corner with a softer light. Yes. Oh, focus. I'm sorry for this close-up. There we go. Yes, you can always add additional sources and start filling in stuff where you're needing it. I'd always take care of that in terms of multiple reflections. If you start to add like a harder one into a harder one into a softer one, you won't see it. But as soon as you move aside, you're going to take care of it. So it's definitely something we do all the time. It's going to be a little bit more careful. The more I'm filling, the more I tend to use bigger surfaces. Just use the window, use the wall, or use the ceiling. Just really carefully, not to just give you some undefined lighting. But that really helps. Yeah, and the sun is just a great thing to use too if you don't want to use a light source, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, that was today's Insta Live. I must say thank you so much always for joining and being here. It's really one of the biggest pleasures I have that I can talk to you guys and I can answer all your questions. So if anything comes up, you have the feeling this has not been talked about, I'm always grateful if you go back into the chat, into Instagram, get back to us. We'll review it, see how we can put it together into one session like this. Yeah, if there's any last questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, we're at the end of our hour, and I'm ready for a beer. And some of you guys around the world are ready for your second morning coffee, I'm sure. And thank you again. Yes, I had a feeling that it's important to not only talk about the lighting, but to talk about why this is so important to be a human being in this world. Which is, I guess, at the end of the day, what we're here for. Hey, Femi. Yeah, just another fantastic DPs over here. I'm always glad I'm not seeing who's online, because then I get embarrassed. But it's great anyways. Brilliant. Ready to sleep. On the other side of the world, I am sure you are. Sehr gut, vielen Dank. Vielen Dank auch. Thank you so much, Matthews, for joining. It's a pleasure to work with you. If you got any questions about CRLS here in the States, go to those guys, come to us. It's just been an amazing partnership that's been coming along. Such passionate people wanting to work for lighting. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, Prost, salute. What would you use perfectly to soften the light? What would be a diffusion? A single diffusion you would use to perfectly soften the light? Diffusion 4. At the other end of it, that's going to give you the maximum diffused amount of light. So even if you're not wanting to put a light source in there, just add a little fill, just take the reflector into your hand. Off you go. To put a seawall on the back with a spigot, so you're not getting your fingers all over the reflectors like I've been doing right now, and just pump it in, it's going to be ready. Oh my God, 3 p.m. in India. I really hope to come to India one day. This is there. There you go. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining. Anything, come back to us. Contact Judith, contact myself. We're all here for you. That's what keeps us going each day. Thanks so much. Stay safe. See you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Like it's scratched easily. Are they delicate? Like all tools out there, please do take care. We're trying to actually post some videos on how to take care of the reflectors on that postscriptum note. Okay, bye-bye. So, and now, share to IGTV, end stream, and